Good morning, South Central Montana. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan. 6 minutes after the hour. It's Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 37 degrees outside. Shane Metaubin on the line with me from Vancouver, British Columbia. Half man, half amazing. Glad to have you with me, man. Thanks for being here every day.
I appreciate it, Mayor. It's a dynamic kind of time of year, and what a day today. I mean, the stories in history today are unbelievable.
Amen to that. Well, before we get to history, we got to do something a little more current, and that's the weather. We did get the predicted rain over the weekend, so I am vilified that it rained Friday and Saturday and part of Sunday. So I guess my forecast was accurate to that point, but this week all bets are off. We
That's
have no
right.
clue what's going to happen here. So. Well, we're looking for a high of 58 today, 36 the overnight low. It'll be sunny all day, no chance of precip at all. So we'll enjoy the nice Monday back to work day. Tuesday, we're looking for a high of 64, mostly cloudy, very little chance of anything, rain or snow or anything else happening. And we're looking at 41 degrees there. And then Wednesday, 61 will be the high and 35 the overnight low. We might have some AM showers, about less than a 50% chance, so it's kind of a 50-50 as to where those will show up. And 61 on Thursday and partly cloudy, no chance there of any precip. And then scattered thunderstorms move in on Friday. 55 will be the high, 37 the overnight low. Again, less than a 50% chance of those thunderstorms materializing. So we'll see what happens there. And then Saturday, 58 and Sunday, 52. So you'll have another nice weekend after a little dampness during the week. Temperatures around the area right now. Let's look at Livingston is 38 degrees. Manhattan is 33. Three Forks is 36 degrees. Gallatin Gateway is 34. Ennis is 35 degrees and clear over there. Gardner's 37 and cloudy. Big Sky 29 and partly cloudy. And at the airport in Belgrade is 34 degrees. And currently at our downtown studios, it is 37 degrees at 8 minutes after the hour of 6 a.m. So that's your Gallatin weather around the area. So learn live it, love it.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. There you go.
Yeah,
Everywhere.
we got it going. Well, let's take a look at our day in history. 1509, Henry VIII became the King of England following the death of his father, Henry VII. And, of course, the song made famous by who? Who made Henry VIII? Huh? Come
That's
on.
right. But
Who sang?
but I mean, this is like it's such an amazing time. He was 18 when he
Mm.
became, and he was the second Tudor monarch. But the most amazing thing was two things aside from the six marriages, which everyone knows about. But he initiated the English Reformation because of his separation from Rome, because they wouldn't grant him an annulment from his first wife, and he created the Church of England, which he then made himself the head of the Church of England, and he confiscated all the Catholic properties, both in Wales and Scotland and Ireland and the United Kingdom, or in England. The other thing that was amazing for his life was two things that are really important to mention. The English Constitution. He was the one who created the concept of divine right. You know, that God picked these people to become monarchs, which is
Oh,
a real ancient concept. Wow.
yeah.
And then, of course, he started building ships because, it was the 16th century. This was time of conquest in the New World, in the Caribbean, and in Central and South America by the Spanish and their great wealth. And finally, the thing is, as some of the people that we read about, you and I did in high school and college, Thomas Wolsey, Thomas More, Thomas Cromwell, Richard Rich, which I'm sure the cartoon Richie Rich came from, and of course Thomas Kramer. So, as much as he had a problem with all of the different things that he did, he was a pretty intelligent, capable, and Renaissance kind of guy. So there you go.
All right. 1864, Congress authorized the use of the phrase "In God We Trust" on U.S. coins. 1864, right after right during the Civil War, I guess.
That's right.
Right before the year before the end of the Civil War.
That's right. And it first appeared on a 2-cent piece, like a 2-cent piece.
All right.
And then currency paper. And then it was voted into law, but in 1956, which I'm sure that might interest a lot of people. It's not that old. And it was also voted into law, E pluribus unum, in God we trust, as the Great Seal, to be put on the Great Seal of the United States and to be a motto for the United States. So it's the official motto of the country.
All right. And also, Henry VIII, of course, was sung by Herman's Hermits. So
that's right, they were.
Just so you know. So
and they had a TV show.
They did, yeah.
It was a cartoon.
Well, okay. 1870, communist revolutionary Vladimir Lenin was born. Vladimir Ilyich Ukhanov in Simbirsk, Russia.
Well, at least he was Russian, or from the far east of Russia.
That's true. Yeah.
He wasn't an immigrant. No, but he did change the world. I mean,
at least for a pretty long time, he did.
And of all the things that, aside from what the direct effect on the Soviet Union, but assassinating the royal family, that was, I think, the real big thing. That was the nut he had to crack to get people to agree to do that.
Wow. In 1889, the Oklahoma land rush began at noon as thousands of homesteaders staked claims. Was that where they got in the wagons and they went racing across the...
That's right across the plains, and they had stakes that they had been issued. And, of course, there was a great argument because some people bribed the people, the government agents that were handing out the stakes because they were supposed to be handed out to each person. And you got, wherever you threw a stake in the ground and the guy came by to write you in his book, you got 500 acres. So it was a pretty good deal. I
think I would have just planted my stake at the starting line. Why go racing across the country? I mean, I guess all these other people, I'm saying, how about this, Ethel? This looks pretty good. Tap, tap, tap.
One word, water.
Oh, okay. Well, all right, I guess if it's that important to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of important to you. Yeah.
Well, in 1954, I was a mere babe in the woods, but the televised Senate Army McCarthy hearings began. And that was quite a deal for a long time. That was the precursor to Watergate, I guess. The first hearings that we were televised to, and we were, of course, looking for communists in the entertainment industry, the writing industry, the government, anywhere we could find them. They were communists under every rock, it seemed like. So there they were.
There they were, and even people like Howard Hughes and Ronald Reagan even was called before it because he was, the head of the
Screen Actors Guild,
the Screen Actors Guild, and the Joseph McCarthy was walking around Washington with a briefcase saying, "I have a list of communist agents in the U.S. government in this briefcase that I have to make sure we get, out of government." And it's sort of the same sort of thing you're hearing today. Wow, how relevant to what we're talking about today.
Well, yeah, it is. Yeah. What proof do you have there, Joe?
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of hearsay.
That's right. Yeah. And I can't let you look at my briefcase. Right?
Yeah. Well, and of course, back in the day, a lot of the studios were Republican, and these writers were blackballed and blacklisted, and actors couldn't act, and writers couldn't write, and sometimes they had to write under assumed names and have intermediaries deliver scripts and things so they could maintain a livelihood. It was a tough time for a lot of these folks. Yeah,
and it was never supposed to happen again.
Well, guess what?
It did.
1970, Earth Day was observed for the first time, and been kind of a dumb holiday ever since.
I think I probably was drinking beer under the bleachers or something like that. I don't know. I was in high school. So.
I was gonna say Earth Day was yesterday, I believe, here. So
was it?
We're supposed to supposed to do
Well,
something.
maybe it's International Earth Day here.
Yeah.
Know.
Yeah, I think maybe Monday. I don't know. Maybe today is Earth Day. I don't know. I don't remember when it is. Does it really matter?
No.
No, I don't think so either. So, 1983, the West German news magazine Stern announced the discovery of personal diaries purportedly written by Adolf Hitler that turned out to be a hoax.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a pretty amazing story. I mean, it went around the world. As they say today, it went viral. It was amazing.
Yep.
The interest in it. And then there was a guy that did the autobiography on Howard Hughes that was, well, hoax too.
Mm-hmm.
So hoaxes aren't new, folks. They've been around for a while.
Been around. Yep. They sure have. 1993, the U.S. Holocaust Museum, Memorial Museum, was dedicated in Washington, D.C., and quite a place to visit if you haven't been there.
And 40 years after the war, it took a while for it to be put together, and so it's sort of like the Vietnam Wall in Washington D.C., which is remarkable.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the monument to World War II. The World War II veterans and survivors of World War II that fought, but they seem to get it done. And even though Washington seems to be running out of room for things.
Yeah.
Yeah, plenty of room for government buildings, though.
Apparently we do. Yep. And plenty of people to work in them, too.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Well, in 1994, Richard Nixon, the 37th President of the United States, died at age 81 in New York City 4 days after suffering a stroke. And, of course, he's the first president to resign the presidency. And Gerald Ford took over, and Gerald Ford, the first guy who was not elected vice president, not elected president, and turned out to be president. So there you are. There you are.
Yeah. And
that's all you got to do is be at the right place at the right time.
That's right. But the interesting thing about Gerald Ford was two things. He took his stepfather's name because his original name was King. Mm-hmm. And he told his mom he wanted to go into politics, and she said, "Well, you'll never get elected with the last name King."
Well, yeah. So there you
but the other thing too was you sort of knew that Nixon's time was up when they got Spiro Agnew to resign because he was a pretty tough vice president, a junkyard dog type.
Oh right? Yeah, he was. All right, we got to take a short break here. We still don't have any Montana news and agriculture, but we got some words from some folks here locally, and of course we've got our weekly test of the emergency broadcast system, so stay tuned. All of that's ahead right after this. 20 minutes after the hour of 6 a.m., it's Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 37 degrees outside. Shane Bataman on the line with me from Vancouver, British Columbia. Half man, half amazing. Tom Eaglehoff, your morning mayor in the house, and welcome to the KMMS Morning Soapbox with Tom and Shane. And we've been talking about the day in history and Richard Nixon resigning. In 2000, armed immigration agents seized Elian Gonzalez from his relative's home in Miami. The 6-year-old boy was reunited with his father in Cuba, no less. So he was kind of put there to take whatever.
That's right. And a lot of people remember this because it, again, was one of those things that was viral and followed. So, I mean, CNN even, remember CNN actually had a camera in the closet that they grabbed the kid out of.
Oh, they did. Yeah. They were.
And I mean, it was very, very widely televised.
Yeah.
But this is the policy that your president's dealing with today that was the Clinton policy at the time. And the policy was that in the U.S. policy evolved in what was called wet feet, dry feet. The rule, if a Cuban was picked up at sea or walking towards shore, they were repatriated back to Cuba unless they could make a claim of asylum. But if they made it to shore or entered through Mexico before encountering U.S. authorities, in other words, got that foot on their U.S. soil, they were generally allowed to remain in the country. Mm-hmm. Unlike Bush Sr., who Tom and I were talking about it, during or after the earthquake in Haiti, 95% of most of those people were returned, and 55,000 were sent to Guantanamo in Cuba. So I mean, it's pretty amazing that again today on this day of history, a very relevant topic comes to hand.
Yep. That it is. We learn as we go, don't we? It's on the job training.
That's right.
2004 pro football player Pat Tillman, who traded in a multi-million-dollar contract to serve as an Army Ranger in Afghanistan, was killed by friendly fire. That's what you don't want to have happen in a military
That
operation. That was sad. Yeah. Guy.
I think he came out of Arizona, right? Yeah.
I believe so. Yep. Yeah. 2005, Zacharias Moussaoui pleaded guilty in federal court to conspiring with the September 11th hijackers to kill Americans. He was later sentenced to life in prison.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
And in 2010, the Deepwater Horizon oil platform operated by BP sank into the Gulf of Mexico 2 days after a massive explosion that killed 11 workers and really decimated the Gulf of Mexico for a while because they couldn't get it stopped.
That's right. But there's amazing history to this piece of equipment, as huge as it was. It was built in South Korea by the Hyundai Heavy Metals industry. So that means it had to be towed across the Pacific.
Yeah,
through the Panama Canal, because it had to fit. They had to build it the size, and then into the Caribbean Sea. But they built, this rig drilled the deepest oil well in history, a vertical depth of 35,050 feet.
Wow.
Now that's from the sea floor down.
7 miles.
Now, yes, but they were standing in 4,100 feet of water. So they had to run piping down 4,000 feet to get to the sea floor. So you're talking almost 40,000 feet down. How incredible is that? That's amazing.
Yeah,
what technology? Yeah,
that's higher than jets fly over the over the land here. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, thank you. Very good point.
Yeah. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the nuclear weapons, American physicist, headed the Manhattan Project, born on this date in 1904 and died in 1967.
1967, which again is a remarkable thing to think about, that he's lived to 1967. Brilliant man, obviously, and what a project. I mean, of all things, the Manhattan Project was the best kept secret during World War II, and probably in the history of your country, considering how huge it was.
Oh, it's amazing.
The undertaking, 4 states and Washington. And the number of people involved, several hundred thousand people involved. Yeah, no one knew what they were doing until. Yeah,
I think we learned from World War II that loose lips sink ships, things like that. So I think everybody was kind of, and we had a more where everybody was behind the military, not like today where every time we send somebody off somewhere, everybody gets upset that we didn't. They really need to be there. Oh my God.
And they could incarcerate people pretty easy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, during that time. Yeah. Well, also there was the House Un-American Activities Committee was in the House, and
that's right.
You had to sign what the agreement that you weren't going to work against the United States and all those things. So
that's right.
I guess that are unconstitutional now, anyway. But good old Isabella, Queen Isabella, we know her, born on this date. She was the Spanish queen. She sponsored Columbus' voyage to the New World. If it wasn't for Queen Isabella, we might not be sitting here, Shane.
Well, yeah, certainly wouldn't have been an Italian guy that found it from, paid by the Spanish, but there you go.
Yeah.
It's amazing how, again, another amazing day in history. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see much else here in the way of birthdays or anything of any note that I'm going to waste any time on.
Gosh forbid.
Yeah. So we could go right to the local news of fifth grade kids at Bozeman's Longfellow School donated their pennies and dimes so the children they never met in faraway Africa can have surgical and medical care that will change their lives. They're looking at Tanzania. They're giving they have jars in their classrooms, spare change that they put in, and they're called Be the Change Jars, BEE. They're hand decorated, so Be the Change Jars. And one kid brought in $63. Wow.
Wow, that's...
So, yeah. A buck will, it costs about $4 a day to house and feed a kid in Tanzania. So a Bozeman parent and her family traveled to Tanzania just to experience a new culture after she and her daughter volunteered for a month at the Plaster House Gettler, ending up becoming the nonprofit chief fundraiser. And through the money raised by Longfellow, kids may seem small by Bozeman standards, but the lessons they're learning are big. So good for them, putting that out there. Yeah.
Yeah, it sort of reminds you of the UNICEF kids that would come around during Halloween, right, and ask for change.
Yeah,
back in
was it Halloween? I don't know when they came around. I don't know.
It was Halloween.
Was it?
Instead of asking for candy, they asked for money.
For money. Okay.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much of that money actually ended up at UNICEF and down at the candy store. I mean, come on. I think that would be the worst possible holiday to go out and ask for money.
That's right.
Anyway. All right, we got to get out of here. Take a break. You're not going to hear that 1 minute of Montana news you've been hearing, or Fox News you've been hearing for weeks and weeks and weeks. So yeah, we're done with that one. No Montana State news. So we're going to be back pretty quick. Weather and a couple of spots, and we'll be right back with you as soon as that's done. So stay tuned. Greg Gianforte will be in here at 7:30, and Scott Sales and Steve White will be in here at 8. So we got a lot to do today, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after this. 27 minutes for the top of the hour. It's Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 37 degrees outside. Shane Matobin on the line with me from Vancouver, British Columbia, half man, half amazing. And Tommy Gallup, your morning mayor in the house, and you're on the KMMS Morning Soapbox with Tom and Shane. And well, Shane, we had Earth Day festival here locally, and a lot of folks turned out for that. And, of course, it's always a big deal here that we all get green. It's sort of like St. Patrick's Day, except, it's a different kind of green. So
yeah, I just want to know, did they have balloons with helium in them?
I don't know. That would be a question, wouldn't it? Yeah. We got helium balloons or hydrogen or
whatever. Exactly.
That's right. Everybody was out there with their plastic cell phones and their all their
rubber
earth destroying all their earth destroying laptops and iPads, and drove their cars there, and
exactly.
Yep. It was quite a
eating hamburgers.
That's right. Yep. Barbecuing. Everything we could do to screw up the environment was done at Earth Day. Well,
as a group, so we feel better.
That's right. We did it as a group, so you feel a lot better, of course. And the other thing, the city's making plans to repair the Bogert Pavilion. It collapsed and also caught on fire, I believe. So it was a double whammy for that. But they had a partial roof collapse in March from the snowpack, and so it's been the long-standing farmers market and other summertime events may set up under the open sky as the pavilion remains fenced off. Can't go in there yet till they get it somewhat safe, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. You got to follow the guidelines, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Well, this week, Bozeman commissioners approved an agreement with Morrison Merrily to evaluate what choices the city had to bring the Bogert Pavilion back to its original form. And the facility superintendent, Mike Gray, said the city will have to decide whether it will repair or replace the 1970 structure. That will have to wait for the city to hear what insurance will pick up on this. And work began on the project the same day the city learned a portion of the roof caved in after days of heavy snow, and the contractors evaluated the scene that day and made decisions on how to keep the area safe. They also reviewed how to get the rest of the snow off the roof and hold, as winter held on to Bozeman during that time. We had cave-ins, of course, at MSU that everybody remembers, had all that going on. So Yeah, the Bogert Farmers Market's been a staple there for a long time, and yeah, I don't know if they want to go out in the uh, out on the bare ground or not with the rain and everything else that comes along there for their signs and their produce and everything. So,
Well, yeah,
it's
it's one of
nice to
these
be
things that,
under.
yeah, and it's become very popular now in the last 20 years because,
Oh yeah,
because people that don't eat meat, vegetarians in particular,
sure.
want to, and they want to buy fresh, organic food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
sure.
everywhere across North America, it's sort of a cool thing because there's fresh, markets now, and
Mm-hmm.
you go there and there's people that have bakeries and
Oh
it's
yeah.
really great bakery food. Oh my gosh, it's cool, man.
Yeah, it
It's
really
great.
is. Yeah, we've got they've got one at the fairgrounds too, and so we get two of them as here in Bozeman. But yeah, it's fun to go down there. You get some nice fresh produce grown locally here, and you get to enjoy that on your table, and pretty nice deal.
So, did you have a great Easter Sunday?
Um, I Sunday, yes, I did. I watched the Celtics beat beat up on, and I watched Golden State beat up on
That's
whoever they
good.
played. Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah,
both my
yeah. But it's a basketball
yeah
day.
both my
Yeah.
teams won. So
Oh, that's good.
oh,
Yeah, and the playoffs go on, right?
the playoffs go on. Yeah, they'll be playing till June, I think. Probably, I think.
Yeah. Then there's
Those.
that big bust up with in Boston, with Kate Smith. Remember I mentioned her name to you a week ago or
Oh
something,
yeah.
and then they took her statue away.
What's
I
the
thought,
deal with
well,
Kate Smith? Come on. I mean, she
God bless America.
What do
That
you
was a
what are
great.
you gonna chastise Al Jolson for being blackface? Come on,
Unbelievable.
Kate
Yeah.
Smith, really?
Yeah.
God bless
The-
America, Kate Smith.
yeah.
You're gonna kick her to the curb for some
Yeah.
stupid song
Isn't it amazing?
that was in a Broadway play.
Yeah, I know. I know. Isn't that crazy?
Come on,
I don't know.
we've
It's amazing.
got to start thinking, folks. You got to start thinking.
Yeah.
You gotta push back against these efforts here. You can't take an icon like Kate Smith and hey, I don't care if Kate owned slaves.
But she didn't.
I know she didn't, but I mean,
There's
if
no
she
really.
had, I don't care.
Yeah,
She
exactly.
sings
Like,
the best version of America, the beautiful, or
God bless
whatever song it is.
America.
God bless
Yeah.
America, whichever one it is.
Yeah.
And
Well,
oh man,
2 weeks ago I mentioned it on your show, and
you gotta.
yeah,
I'm sorry, we really got to push back against that. That's
yeah,
just stupid.
it was. It was.
That,
I couldn't believe it.
yeah.
So yeah, it was a busy weekend for a lot of other people, but
Yeah.
the rest of us celebrated,
Yeah.
the glory of our Lord and
Yeah.
His rising, and it was a great Sunday with the kids and
Yeah.
beautiful here. The weather was beautiful, so
Did you do an
you know,
Easter egg roll or Easter egg
the
hunt
Easter egg
or
roll
anything
and
like
Easter
that?
egg hung,
Yeah.
yeah, with my
Yeah.
grandkids. It was fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, I don't know. Being in the military, we always painted our eggs camouflage, and the kids couldn't find them, so we had to go do something else. That's what,
Yeah, I can see that. Honestly,
green and brown, and
yeah,
look like grass. And I don't know. The kids are walking around crying with their empty baskets. Can't find the eggs.
oh,
Come on.
geez. Well, it was really cool because we did 6 hard-boiled eggs, and then I showed my grandchildren how to blow an egg. You know how you pop the end out and blow the inside out, so you just have the shell to paint. So it was pretty cool.
Okay, I had no idea how to blow
You've
out
never
an
done
egg.
that?
I've never
Oh, my
blown out an egg.
Oh,
No.
it's amazing. Yeah, and then you use the eggs from inside to cook omelets on Easter morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's fun.
Oh,
It's a great thing
okay.
for children to do. It
All right.
teaches them
How
to
do you
be
get
very
how do you get the egg out the small hole though? I mean,
well. You poke holes at both ends of the egg, and
Yeah.
then on the wider bottom side of the egg, you have to poke the yolk so it breaks,
oh, okay.
and then you blow air in on the larger side of the egg, and it all squirts out into a dish, and then you paint the eggshell.
Okay.
But it's a great thing for children to learn how things that are fragile are.
Apparently, gonna say
Yeah.
that sounds.
You got to be real careful,
I don't know. Sounds a little gross to me. I don't know. slimy old egg popping out there.
Oh, so you're a newbie. You've never done it.
I've never even considered doing it.
Listen to this, folks. The mayor has been caught this morning on the news.
That's right, man.
He's a newbie to blowing an egg for Easter. Wow, I'm impressed.
I don't know.
There you go. Got you.
Well, I'm going to have to take a break and think about blowing eggs. I don't know.
All right.
We'll be right back right after this. It's 14 minutes till the top of the hour. It is Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 37 degrees outside. Greg Gianforte will join us at 7:30 in studio, and Scott Sales and Steve White will be in at 8 o'clock. And we're all on Easter break, and so we'll be see if we can get any news out of Gianforte and see what's going on in the. We passed the Medicaid, I think, and some other stuff. So we'll get a rundown from Scott Sales and Steve White as to what passed, what didn't, and all of that from the legislature this time around. So we'll be excited to hear their wrap up there, as the legislature only has a week or so to go, a couple of weeks. So they're going to be done with their 90 days here. So getting close. We got to get that budget under wraps, get the governor to sign off on it, and rock and roll. So we've got that happening. So also, too, we got an election coming up. Bozeman candidates are filing for the city commission spots. Jeff Krause and Cindy Andrus, the current mayor, their seats are up, and they'll be up for grabs on November 5th. And Thursday was the first chance candidates had to file for the race. Michael Wallner was the first person in Gallatin County Election Department this morning. And Wallner, 31, filed to serve as a commissioner. He has worked at TechLink for the last 2 years as a lead economic research specialist, originally from Bemidji, Minnesota. Wow. He's lived in Bozeman for 13 years and says, I want to serve because at the local level of government, I can truly represent citizens' perspectives and values, have a positive impact on the community, and preserve our high quality of life, he said in a news release. And also, Cindy Andrus, 62, she is announcing she is running for a second term as mayor, and she's on the commission since she was appointed in 2010 and then won 2 following races. So she's running on her experience and the idea of carrying ongoing projects through future commissions. So we need continuing leadership to fix our high cost of housing. We need to deal with our property tax burden. We need to step up our efforts to conserve water, and we need to continue managing our explosive growth. So that should tell you all you need to know about Cindy. Right? Yeah. Yep, no growth here. No, we don't want any more people. And we want everybody to have a white picket fence, a house, a 2-car garage at $100,000. And,
don't forget the dog and the cat.
That's right. You got to have a dog and a cat in the yard and all that. So, well, we'll see what happens. So, anyway, we'll see if Jeff Krause will be in here on Tuesday. We'll see if he's got any ideas that he might want to make another run for it or not. So, I don't know. He may be tired out. He's three-time mayor and current commissioner. So we'll see what his thoughts are on that day, of course. So, well, back in the news, of course, looking at Donald Trump. Trump's legal team takes a victory lap. First they cooperated, then they stonewalled. Their television interviews were scattershot and ridiculed. Their client, mercurial and unreliable. But President Donald Trump's legal team, through a combination of bluster, legal precedent, and shifting tactics, managed to protect their client from a potentially perilous in-person interview during special counsel Robert Mueller's Russian investigation. So I don't know. This thing is going to keep on going. They're still talking about impeachment. We'll get to that in our next segment. But I don't
Oh,
know.
yes, under the news, we going to talk about the 5 things you need to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of the 5 things you need to know. Will they abandon this folly of impeachment? Because I don't think they can get it done in 18 months to begin with.
Oh, let's hope not. Come on, it
Well,
would be very
yeah,
sad if they
yeah,
realized how wrong. This will continue until the IG, investigative general's report comes out again
yeah.
on the FISA warrants, and
Mm-hmm.
when people in the United States find out more about the FISA courts, how they're set up, because that's what it'll result in.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's why, as I said to you last week, seeing Rosenstein standing
Yeah.
behind Barr at that press conference, I mean, he's in jeopardy because he signed 4 of them, all
Yeah.
4 of them actually.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
I don't know.
we'll see
This is
how.
crazy.
Yeah, we'll have to see
Crazy
how he comes out of this deal, because yeah, you're right. He may be on the hook there, depending on what they do with that FISA report, and how far into it they go. That will be the
How
issue.
do you be this guy that has been talked about around the world of talking about wearing a mic to tape the president and wanting to try and have him thrown out of office on the basis of the 25th Amendment? I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to stand there. I just say to my boss, "Sorry, you'll have to get your secretary to do that. I'm not going to go out there."
I'm not doing that.
No, exactly.
All right, we got to take another quick break. We'll be right back. 4 minutes till the top of the hour. It is Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 37 degrees outside. Shane and Tobin on the line with me from Vancouver, British Columbia, and we have a caller waiting patiently on the line. So, caller, you're on the Morning Soapbox with Tom and Shane. What's up?
So we've got Ms. Warren, still wanting to impeach President Trump. I mean, so he's been investigated with this Mueller report. They haven't found anything to charge him with. You know, they want to charge him with something. If they had found anything anywhere, charges would be brought for something. There's nothing. On what grounds is she claiming he should be impeached? This is crazy.
It is crazy gate, darling.
Yep.
Crazy gate.
Well, it's just the fact that, you know what, Donald, we don't like you. So
Yeah.
you weren't a legitimate president, and we want you gone because we lost and we feel bad and we're really upset and you hurt us and we just don't like it and
Right,
you're just mean and nasty to us. And
Yes, but there's nothing on the legal books that say you can impeach someone because you don't like them. I mean, she has to have something substantive to say this is why I think he should be impeached, and I don't hear it.
Well, I don't think hurt feelings are high crimes or misdemeanors. I don't know.
Well, they have to fall back on something because they did. This was a conspiracy from the very beginning, right? So, I mean,
I was going to say, wasn't Mueller supposed to be the gold standard of investigators? Wasn't this guy if there was something there, this guy was the guy to find it? And nobody has gone after Mueller at all. They've gone after Barr, they've gone after Rosenstein, they've gone after everybody else. But Mueller's sitting there like the Boy Scout, with merit badges draped across his chest, and
well, when is someone going to call Ms. Warren on this and expose her as just being kind of crazy? When is someone going to say, "Okay, Ms. Warren, why should we impeach him?" and let her give some kind of answer, and which would be ridiculous, I'm sure. Because,
well, I would think so. I'd like to see a charge, as you would,
I can't wait till the debates because this will come up. But the other thing that'll come up too is their money.
Yeah.
That playing the big socialists and the liberal left socialists and give back. And she telling people that she wants this 70%, and she made like $800,000 last year.
So. Hey, thanks for the call very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good day.
Let's take one more call. Caller, you on the air. What's going on?
Hey, this is Aaron.
Hey, Aaron.
I got to ask you a question.
Sure.
So, is Trump
Only one, Aaron.
No, I'll ask 3. Thank you. This is the non-metric question answering.
Yeah, right.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
Well, real quick, the music's playing, so go for it.
Oh, well, isn't Trump the highest law enforcement officer in the land?
Absolutely.
Okay, so then he's the one that would know if he colluded or not. If he didn't,
Yeah.
there really can't be any obstruction of justice. And given his position, he'd be the one to say that, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
That's okay. Thanks.
Yep.
That's all I wanted to know.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot. All right, we've got to go, and coming up at 7:30, Greg Gianforte will join us, and 8 o'clock, Scott Sales and Steve White will be in, and we'll be talking about the legislature and, talking about what's going on in the House of Representatives, too. Are they going to impeach Trump or not? We'll ask Greg all about that and other stuff when he comes in at the bottom of the hour. So stay tuned. Fox News. I got Fox News. I got Montana weather. I got everything. So come on back. Thank you, Dan. Welcome back, everyone. It is great to be here with you this morning. Tom Eagleoff, your morning mayor in the house. It is 4 minutes after the hour of 7 o'clock, Monday, April 22nd. And 37 degrees outside. Shane Matobin on the line with me from Vancouver, British Columbia. Half man, half amazing. And you're on the KMMS Morning Soapbox with Tom and Shane. Coming up at 7:30, Greg Gianforte will be in the house. And Scott Sales and Steve White will join us at 8 o'clock. So hopefully you guys will all be around for those extravaganzas. Who knows what news might break during that hour and a half. So right now, though, we got to take care of 5 things you need to know. And, of course, that would be Sri Lanka, I should say.
That's right.
Yeah, names a suspected group behind the coordinated deadly Easter attacks. Man, we had 290 people killed and 500 wounded, carried out by 7 suicide bombers from National Throwfeek, Jamath, I guess.
Yeah.
A little-known Islamic militant group. Well, they're going to be known now, I guess. All the bombers and most of the victims were Sri Lankan, and the government said the first 6 bombings hit 3 Christian churches holding Easter services and 3 hotels. Among the dead were 32 foreigners from the U.S., Britain, Turkey, India, China, and Europe. Danish billionaire Anders Hawk Privis, I don't know, said 3 of his 4 children died in the attack. Wow, ouch, that's got to hurt.
Yeah, well, Sri Lanka is an amazing place. I mean, it's off the eastern tip of India. Mm-hmm. It's got a documented history of 3,000 years, prehistoric human settlements for at least 125,000 years. So it's one of these spaces on our planet that has survived a lot of geological catastrophes like ice ages. Mm-hmm. So originally known as Ceylon under the British colonial rule, and incredibly populated. They've survived a 26-year civil war with the Liberation Tiger Tamil Elam. And the sad thing about this reality is it's 70% Buddhist, 12% Hindu, only 9.7% Islam, and 7.4% Christian. And, it's this issue between the Islamic people on the island and the Christian population they're attacking. And while that sounds small, the population is quite large. It's 22 million people for this small island, mm-hmm. and a GDP of around 200 or $300 billion, I think it is. Yeah. But it's an amazing place. They've gone through amazing history, and now they find them on this side of democracy, trying to survive a civil war, perhaps once again on religious basis. So see where it goes from here.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if Iran has. Do they reach into that far, Shane?
Yes.
I mean, they're not that far from India, obviously, but
no, they aren't. And it's one of these areas, when you start getting into the southeast part of Southeast mm-hmm. Asia, so east of Sri Lanka into Malaysia and Indonesia, that's where there are 1 billion Muslims now.
Mm-hmm.
Of 1.7 billion Muslims in the world, we talk about this, 1 billion are Southeast Asia. Yeah, it's quite significant. Yeah.
Well, you think that somebody has to help these folks with, not that they're inept or any, I don't mean to insult anybody, but suicide bombing is an art, I think, to, get the thing to where it works and you push a button and it, you blow up. And the fact that you get 7 people to give themselves up for this, I don't know. It's a sad situation.
Yeah, it's very sophisticated, like you say, and even in Western countries like, Europe and certainly here, we look for this because it's often several people, like 3, 4, 5 people, who are actually putting this together in, these vests or bombs together. They don't generally create one. If they're capable of creating one, they can create several, even as many as a dozen. So, we're always, if you see something, say something, right?
Amen to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, particularly during the Christian Easter, the second highest holy day, I guess, next to Christmas would be, kind of a bad situation. But, well, in other local news, the Democrats, they plan to meet this week to discuss whether to launch impeachment proceedings against President Trump. We just had a caller ask about that. House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, and Schiff told Fox News that the findings in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report were serious and damning. That seemed to be a word everybody used. They were damning on almost every news program. They use the word damning. So
I'd like to remind everyone at home, when was the last time you went to the Caribbean, which they did 2 weeks after winning the election?
Yeah.
And it was all paid for by lobbyists and documented. And they were all down at the beach and, they had some meetings. And here we are, less than 6 months later and less than 3 months into, they're going, notice they don't tell you in this article where they're going to meet. I wonder if it's a sunny location in Florida or, what I mean?
Well, I guess we'll see anyway.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the report detailed numerous Trump actions that could be seen as obstruction of justice. Although Jennifer disagreed, I think Shane and I probably disagreed too, that it's a real stretch for any of the 10 things that came out to be a obstruction. Although it said there was not sufficient evidence to charge anyone in the Trump campaign, and I think that's sufficient too, that, if I think impeachment would have a lot more traction if there were people who had direct ties to Russia in the Trump campaign, but they couldn't find any American. In fact, they even have said any American that had dealt with this. So,
and he says in the report he can't exonerate him. Well, you don't exonerate someone if you can't find something they're guilty of. You charge them.
Yeah.
No one exonerates themselves. They're exonerating someone says they're innocent. So what he should have used the word innocent. He's innocent, so he couldn't charge.
Exonerating someone would also indicate there was a charge going in.
Yeah, exactly.
Which there wasn't. There sort of was. That did Trump collude with the Russians, which collusion is not a crime, of course, but
that was taken care of in the first section of the report. This is in the second section.
Right. Yeah. So, well, I think
it's just it's more.
And I think the Democrats think they're going to find something in the redacted documents and also some of the witness testimony. They want everything. I guess they can get everything except the grand jury testimony.
It's getting to the level of a Gretel story, with cookie crumbs, for the Congress to follow, right?
Yeah, well, we'll see. It's going to be a consequential decision, and as we've said, I think if you want to beat Trump, you got 18 months to do it. I don't think you can impeach him in that length of time because you're too stupid and too slow, and you're going to have to be out. You're all going to have to be out campaigning.
That's
so
right.
I don't know how you figure you're going to sit down and go through millions and millions of documents and witness accounts and all the other stuff you got to go through that happened during this Mueller investigation. And where you going to end up? And you got to find one piece of paper in there that said, well, this guy said, we better call him in. And of course, we're going to call Mueller in. I think when they call Mueller in, that'll be the end of it because, as I said earlier, Mueller was painted as the gold star of this kind of investigation. He's the guy. If there's any guy you want doing it, it's Mueller.
And every Republican, whoever gets the option first, is going to say, when did you know there was no collusion? It didn't just happen a month ago. Yeah. You knew 6 months ago, a year. I want to know, what day did you know there was no? Because he knew 18 months ago he knew 6 months in. Because from all the stuff we've learned from the FBI and all those people that have testified, there was nothing there. From the very beginning, they knew.
Yeah. From our text line, 478-8298. What's wrong this morning? You guys have commercials playing in the breaks. I don't know.
It's working.
Somebody must have done some wrong number or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we were reprogrammed over the weekend to work right today.
Well, I don't know. Saturday things didn't always work as they should either. I don't think the outdoor radio show played again, but I don't know. And some of the streaming wasn't working for a while too, I think. So we're still having issues, but hopefully, I don't know, everything may be working all right this morning. If I'm sure somebody will let us know if they're not getting a streaming. So we'll kind of go from there. So let's take a phone call. 522-TALK is the number, 522-8255. Caller, you're on the Morning Soapbox with Tom and Shane. What's up?
Hey, guys, it's Kevin.
Kevin.
Hey, I think, it's not so much about impeachment. I think they want this redacted stuff so they can have ammunition for the 2020. They want to be able to leak stuff out, which of course they're not supposed to, but they want to see if there's anything in there that they can pull out and try to stop him in 2020 because they see that the economy is doing well and the momentum with the people is with him and with an incumbent. And so I think they just want, and all along, if they could get impeachment, that'd be great. But they want opposition research. They want dirt on him that they can throw out during the election to try to.
But the one problem they have is the mayor's got it covered. Why is that, Mayor? What's Trump?
He's a victim.
That's right.
He's a victim.
Right.
They're making more and more of a victim, which will rally more and more of his base to him. And make the Democrats look like, well, gee, Mueller didn't find what we wanted to find. Now we're going to find it ourselves. And, we know it's there. Come on. Right. This guy couldn't have been legitimately elected. There's no way in the world Donald Trump should be president. Come on.
Right.
What's wrong with you guys?
But, beggars can't be choosers. So, they want any little bit of dirt. That's why they go to taxes, the children, building a hotel in Russia. They are trying to find anything that they think they can throw at them. And if they can find something in the redacted stuff, that's why they're wanting it so hard. They're going to leak it out, of course, and they think they can use it as a weapon because they don't have much. Because he's going to, more likely than not, he's going to be reelected.
Well, if they maintain this posture, if they keep moving to the left and keep AOC as their front runner, and
bring her on.
I was gonna say let's get her on the air as often as possible because that's absolutely a way to get this winning thing done. So
right, and obviously they don't want crazy Bernie and Uncle Joe, because they're leaking out now all the information that we've known about them all along. We've known about all this stuff,
sure,
and we're sitting here screaming it, and you don't see anything in the mainstream media until they don't want that candidate, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, this guy's kind of creepy."
That's it. Hey, we want Bernie. Bernie was passed over. Bernie was screwed over, and so let's let's get Bernie in there. So he's got he's got everything we want, all the free stuff, the free college, the free this, the free that. We got everything.
I know. I'm waiting.
He's
for
our guy.
Suburban and my free house at Big Sky. Where is it?
Well, that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, I get it first if I cross the border and want asylum. I get that house first.
Yeah.
Well, just remember, I'm a vanilla liberal, so I'm just out here.
That's right. Yeah, there you go.
All right, guys.
All right, thanks, Kevin.
All
right, we got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back right after this. 20 minutes after the hour of 7 a.m., it's Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 37 degrees outside. Shane and Tom on the line with me from Vancouver, British Columbia. And Shane, say hello to Greg Gianforte and he'll be happy to know you're here.
Hello, good morning, Congressman. It's great to talk to you once again.
Hi, Shane. Good to be with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, hey, we were just talking about impeachment.
There's a lot of talk.
The Democrats are going to meet, and we had a call this morning about from one of our listeners about Elizabeth Warren jumping on the impeachment bandwagon. And is this thing going to get any traction? Our feeling is that between Shane and I, that 18 months, you're not going to get that impeachment done because everybody's going to be out campaigning. They're not going to be voting. They're not going to be looking at Mueller's report. They're not going to be looking at anything.
Yeah, the Mueller report. This was the cow that the Democrats are going to milk all the way through the election, and it came out and it said clearly there was no collusion, so the cow came up dry, and now they're trying to beat it to get milk out of it.
Yeah,
it's if there was no crime, there can't be any obstruction. What were you obstructing?
Yeah.
There was no crime.
Well, even the Jennifer Bordy, our local attorney in here, we went over the 10 things they thought were, obstruction. And that's a stretch. That's a real stretch. I mean, even for the Democrats.
I will just say this president, unlike many others, he's done exactly what he said he was going to do. He lowered taxes,
kept promises,
peeled regulations back, moved the embassy. He stopped the North Korea from shooting missiles. You just get down the list. He's done every single thing.
Yeah.
And nothing could. Anyway, I'm proud to be working with the president. There's a lot more work we have to get done. I wish we didn't have these sideshows.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. That is, Shane and I have been talking about this forever, that if you want to get rid of Trump, then get rid of him in 2020 at the ballot box. Go make your case to the American people, and whoever emerges from the pack of 20 or 21 or however many we have out there, go make your case and let the chips fall.
Hey, we got work to do. And I travel around the state. I was all over last week, down in Hamilton, Corvallis, Missoula, St. Regis, Ronan, Polson, Deer Lodge. You know what people are concerned about? Immigration and healthcare costs.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to get back to business. Mm-hmm. We were elected to do it. And I'm pleased that just 2 weeks ago, I had a bill come out of committee that'll actually start to get prescription drug prices down. So that's where we ought to be focused instead of these other items.
I'd agree with that. Let's take a phone call. 522-TALK is the number, 522-8255. Caller, you're on the air with Greg Gianforte. What's going on?
Hey, good morning, Tom, Congressman, and Shane.
Hey.
One light note and then one serious question. The light note is that I believe that Dianne Feinstein has a letter from a Christopher B. Volkswagen that she's going to release.
Okay.
Did you catch that pun?
Yes, I caught it.
Okay, you'll have to explain it to us, Shane.
How about Christine Blasey Ford?
Okay, there you go. That's all right. There we go. Now I got it. Okay.
Must be Monday, huh, Tom?
Well, he should have said Chevrolet or something like that,
Well, we have to get off the comment.
All right. Well, that was a great attempt. I'm sorry. It's too early in the morning for me.
Okay. Anyway, two things for the congressman to think about.
Mm-hmm.
One, term limits for the federal level, because I believe the Supreme Court, when they ruled many years ago, they had a conflict of interest because they're confirmed by the Senate, and they should have never ruled on that. Second one is, and I'm forgetting the exact number, but I think it's Amendment number 17, which was the direct election of senators. We need to get rid of that. State governments gave up way too much control over the senators when they did that.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
Any comments on that?
I agree. I think the 17th Amendment really undermines states' rights. In fact, when Justice Scalia was here in Bozeman before his death, he was asked about states' rights, and he pointed to, I think it was 1913, the 17th Amendment was enacted, which shifted from the state legislatures picking senators to popular vote. And, it used to be that if the state legislature didn't like what their senator was doing, or they're spending too much money or whatever, they just say, come on home.
Yeah.
Come on back. It increased states' rights. And the callers is absolutely right. The challenge now is to change the Constitution, heavy lift. Now, I agree with him on term limits. The first day I was in Congress, I introduced a term limit bill. I've met in the Oval Office with the president on term limits. We've reintroduced that bill this Congress. And we'll keep pushing because I think it's good policy.
Yeah.
Our founding fathers never envisioned career politicians.
Yeah. No, they didn't. And, obviously we have term limits on the president. So what's the problem with having term limits across the board? We have them in Montana. Bullock is going to be term limited out. Schweitzer was term limited out. So
I'm supportive of term limits.
Yeah.
And I've co-sponsored legislation to do that.
Yeah. And many states have it. A lot of states have term limits. So the other thing, the immigration situation that, listening to Bernie Sanders the other night on his town hall with Fox News was commenting that, rather than send these people to sanctuary cities where supposedly they're supposed to be welcomed by the Democrats, we'll build shelters for them at the border. Now, I don't know whose land you're going to build that shelter on, but, we'll just build these shelters
I have a different idea.
And we'll send 100 judges down there.
How about we secure the border?
Amen.
I think that would be another approach. And honestly, we need immigration reform as well. With ending this visa lottery and the chain migration. And we do need to provide some accommodation for the DACA kids that are here, but no special path. Just get in line with everybody else, but let's provide some kind of legal, permanent legal status while they're here, while they're in line to become a citizen.
Right. Yeah.
And we had those bills on the floor last year. I voted for both of them. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough votes to get it through. I think we have to break it into pieces now and start to reform our immigration system, which is so broken. And that's given us this crisis at the southern border, both humanitarian and national security.
Okay. From our text line, Greg, 478-8298, can you ask Greg about the bill allowing postal employees to be able to buy back our substitute time where it's at? When can we expect to hear something? I want to retire. Thanks. He's doing a great job. And maybe we'll hold that till
I'll have to look into it. I'm not familiar with that bill, but if I get it, I'm happy to do the research.
All right. We come back. One of the things I want to ask you about, can you hang around with us for a little longer? Okay. When we come back, one of the things I want to ask you about is the citizenship question on the census. So let's talk about that when we come back. So we're talking with Greg Gianforte, Shaman Taubman on the line, Half Man, Half Amazing in Vancouver, British Columbia, and my co-host. And we'll be back with more with Greg right after these important words. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. 26 minutes before the top of the hour. It's Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 38 degrees outside. Shaman Taubman on the line with me, Half Man, Half Amazing from beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. I don't know if it's beautiful. I think it's probably dumb, but anyway. And Tom Eagleoff, your morning mayor in the house. Tom and Shane on the morning soapbox. Greg Gianforte, our representative in Washington, joining us on our Newsmaker line. And, in person, actually, right here sitting across from me.
In the flesh.
Yeah.
Tom and Shane, good to be with you. Hey, Shane, which half is amazing?
Yeah, that's what
I don't talk about it because it's before 7 o'clock in the morning for me. So
yeah, we got to be careful.
Yeah, I have to be careful.
Yeah, yeah. We had a soundbite about that got a lot of people riled up. So yeah, you'll just have to imagine on your own.
Sorry to touch on a sore subject.
No, that's okay.
It's a mental side. It's a mental thing. Okay.
Yeah, there you are. Yeah.
There's a hint. There you go.
Let's take a phone call. 522-TALK is the number. Caller, you're on the air with Greg Gianforte. What's going on?
Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Just wanted to ask Congressman a quick question. What he thought the likelihood of the executive branch being able to classify fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. Thanks, and have a great day.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, it is pretty much.
it is, it is devastating our communities. I think when I I was in China here just 3 weeks ago. We met with senior Chinese officials because most of the fentanyl is produced in China and shipped over.
Thank you for telling everyone that.
And we raised that in every one of the meetings we had. And just along with forced technology transfer, opening these trade agreements back up so we can get our farmers to have markets for their goods, we also raised fentanyl. And we need their cooperation. Mm-hmm. And that, I believe, that they gave us their word. Now, we've had issues in the past with practice being different than policy, but their policy and their words they were willing to help on this. And so tool of mass destruction, I think it's already classified. It's a controlled substance. It is used in cancer treatment. It has a purpose, but clearly it's being misused as well.
Yeah.
And we've confiscated enough fentanyl at the southern border last year alone, confiscated to kill every American twice. That's how much is coming across the southern border. So it gets back to immigration and border security. And this is why I'm proud to stand with the president. We've now gotten him a bunch of funds. We are building the wall. That's not the only solution, but a physical barrier. When I've been down on the border, we need to get it in place to stop the flow of meth, fentanyl into our communities, as well as the people. At this rate, we're going to have 1 million illegals come into the country this year, which is just...
Well, we had 100,000 here recently that were just captured in 1 month there, and that doesn't indicate how many got through. Same with the fentanyl.
Our immigration laws are broken. I mean, at the point we send out a notice to all of Central America and Mexico and say, hey, you can come across, it's illegal, we're going to apprehend you, but then we're going to catch and release.
We're going to let you go.
And oh, by the way, we're going to keep all the families together. Yeah. So please don't come, but we're going to take good care of you if you do.
Yeah, right. Well, and also, too, recently there was the, I'm sure you heard, several states, they rounded up doctors and practitioners and whatever that were doing fentanyl. They were doing all these opioid drugs and everything, and they had about a 6-state arrest situation going on.
Yeah, and as I said, last week I was traveling around the state. Anytime I'm proud that I haven't spent a weekend in Washington, D.C. yet. I get back here every weekend. But last week, I always make it a point as I'm traveling around, I meet with law enforcement. I was down in Ravalli County, met with the sheriff down there. And I asked him the question, I typically do this, what percentage of the crime you see in Montana is drug-related or has a drug root to it? I've gotten numbers north of 70%, up to 90%. Yeah. All of in fact, the sheriff up in the middle part of the state, up in Lewistown, said, I know when the meth shows up from Mexico because I see a spike in the crime rate. All the burglaries, vandalism, domestic violence.
Get the money to buy it.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. So it's a spike. Mm-hmm. And so to think that the border is, so far away it's not affecting Montana, it is. We have a river of drugs coming across that southern border into our community. It's breaking families down. It's putting kids in foster care. It's the root of most of the crime we see. We need to secure the border. We need to get the Customs and Border Patrol the resources they need to do their job, and we need to reform the immigration laws.
Yeah. From our text line, 478-8298, I'd like to thank Greg for flipping burgers at the official Palmer benefit at Safeway. Raised $7,800, so good for you doing that.
Well, that was so important. I mean, we have to support law enforcement. And Wade Palmer, as you know, was shot in the line of duty. He's still down in Salt Lake City recovering. He's in stable condition. But we came together as a community, flipped some burgers, had some fun, and raised some money.
Yeah. The other one on that postal thing we talked about earlier, the person didn't hear all of the response, and I think you mentioned that you're not familiar with that.
Happy to look into it, but I'm not familiar with that particular bill.
And maybe Shane and I can look into it as well, see where that is.
And people, I'll just say, we get
they can contact you, right?
Absolutely. If you go to our website is gianforte.house.gov. And we love hearing from folks. Actually running a congressional office, Tom, is sort of like running a customer service department. We get anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 inquiries every single week.
Wow.
And we've had over 250,000 inquiries since I've been in office. We respond to each one individually, and I review every response before it goes out. And when you put an engineer in charge of a customer service department, you get all kinds of metrics. So we typically get back to folks in a couple of days. It might be as many as 5 or 6 days if we have to do some
Depending
research.
what you're doing, yeah.
Exactly. And the other great pleasure of this job is working for veterans. We have a gal up in our Great Falls office that does casework for veterans. So if there are veterans out there that are having trouble getting their benefits or the VA is just too confusing, Tori in our Great Falls office, phone number's up on the website. Reach out to her, and she does casework. That's all she does is work for veterans to make sure they get their benefits.
All right. We got to take a quick break, and we'll be back with Greg Gianforte, Shaman Taubman, and myself right after this. 14 minutes before the top of the hour. It is Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 40 degrees outside. Shaman Taubman on the line with me from Vancouver, British Columbia, and Greg Gianforte is in the house. We got 2 callers waiting, so caller number 1, you are on the air. What's going on?
Well, thank you. What I'd like to talk about is tax reform, and I just tuned in, so perhaps you've already talked about this, so forgive me if you have. The question I have is that I understood, and this is not very well researched, that there is some bill before Congress to limit the ability of the IRS to simplify its rules. Most notably, to be able to use electronic serving of tax service, and it's being opposed by those like TurboTax and other electronic filing systems. And from a tax simplification standpoint, it seems to me that the post office should have the IRS should have the ability to do anything it wants to do to simplify the god-awful mess that we have as a tax filing system right now. Any comments and thoughts on that?
Sure. So I think we had the head of the IRS in front of our oversight committee last year, and he was there actually on tax day. It was just a year ago. And he shared with us, I think 80% of America's returns are filed electronically now. I'm a computer guy. I think it's easier for individuals. We have to preserve it for those that don't have access, but more and more are going to online. I don't know of any bill that would restrict it. I know when we did the tax reform package just over a year ago, it included some accountability measures for the IRS because clearly better is possible. But I don't know of any effort to restrict their ability to provide better services. And
here's my thought on this, and I'd like to get your reaction to it. The tax code that we have right now is incomprehensible to the average guy on the street. So
agreed.
If you really have, any need for this, if you have the itemization needs, you've got to go to a tax consultant, a hired service to get that done. What I would like to see, and tell me why this doesn't make sense, is simply that says, hey, here's how much money you made. And the IRS already knows this. I mean, they get 1099s and W-2s. So they already know how much you have. So the way it's done a lot of times in Europe is the taxing agent sends you a notice and says, here's what your taxes are. And if you haven't withheld enough, then you pay more. If you have, you pay less. But it's a very simplified process. They don't spend any time at all in Europe messing around with all the deductions and the complexity of tax filing we have. And what I'd like to see is simply a postcard that says, how much did you make, times a percentage, and that's it. You just send that to the IRS and forget about all this other stuff.
You're right. It's the tax law has gotten wickedly complex. And that was a lot of what the reform did. It was directionally towards what you're talking about because somebody comes along and says they have a great idea. They want a deduction for whoever, single moms or something, or if you make improvements on your home or it becomes more energy efficient, and all of a sudden you have hundreds and hundreds of these deductions. And one of the design criteria in the tax bill that we passed a little over a year ago was to eliminate a lot of those special deductions and use the savings to lower the rates for everybody. So every single income level paid a lower rate, but you might have lost some special purpose things. Now, there were some things that were preserved, like charitable deductions for charitable deductions for charitable contributions. mortgage interest on your primary residence. So that information wouldn't necessarily be known to the IRS. So there is a need to fill it out, but you could still get closer to a postcard type reform. And I think that, all this energy put into filling out returns for Americans, those people could go do something useful.
Yeah.
Would you support a postcard style return? Would you support that?
Yes, absolutely. We'd have to get there. So you have to tell people, okay, which of these deductions you get rid of, and the devil's in the details there as you start to remove those. For sure.
Things. Yeah. Well, Shane doesn't have a house deduction in Canada, So
that's right. I would be a little careful about modeling ourselves after Europe, because the rates are way higher than they are here in the U.S.
I was just in Europe, and I learned that, and this is real. A guy he says we pay 60% taxes. That's kind of an all-in number.
Well, there was a simplified form. Of course, it's a joke, but it says, how much did you make? Yeah. And the next line is send it in.
Send it in, yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, caller. You have the radio voice that I should have. Don't ever call here again. So.
Thanks for your call.
Thanks for your call.
Thank you.
All right, bye. Steve-O, you're on real quick. I got to take a break. What's up?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to just say first hi to Greg, my favorite congressman.
Your only congressman. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, you betcha. You got the joke. But anyway, the thing they were calling in about the post office, I know some hardworking postal employees, Greg, and they sure would appreciate you backing that resolution. It's House Resolution 5389.
Okay.
And the gist of it is, they didn't get any credit for the time when they were working as temps, to accrue any pension or other types of retirement. And if you would back that and have them on that.
I appreciate you bringing it to my attention. That. We'll take a look at it.
Thank you very much, Greg.
All right. We got to take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. 4 minutes for the top of the hour, Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 40 degrees outside. Greg Gianforte's in the house. Shane Mataman on the line from Vancouver. And we got a caller on the line who's waiting a year to ask you something, Greg. So
I'm ready.
Go for it. Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
So my name is Joel. Hey, about a year ago on CNN, I heard this wretched, ugly Maxine Waters say this statement. She said... In fact, I considered it a death threat. But she said, I would love to eviscerate Donald Trump. And I never heard anything later that any other person in the news picked that up and criticized it or said anything. But I would think that a representative in the U.S. House there that said something that ugly, and really it's a death threat, as I said, I feel it is, that she would be, she would kick her out of the House.
Well, there's been some things said that I think there should be actions for. Some of the things, Adam Schiff has been saying that he had evidence of collusion. Adam, put up or shut up. And if he was lying he should not be the chairman of that committee. We've had anti-Semitic remarks made in the House, and honestly, that individual should not be on the committee she's on. The Republicans have self-policed. We had an individual earlier this year, and I'm on the committee that decides which committees people sit on. We pulled him off all his committees. That was our own discipline. But for my part, where I'm investing my energies for the people of Montana is trying to find areas where I can move legislation forward to benefit the people. This is why, as I mentioned, I had these bills come out of committee last week. We found bipartisan ground to do prescription drug reform, to get prescription drug prices down. I have a bill I'm working with the Democrat chair of the Healthcare Committee to get telemedicine so we have better care for our veterans in rural communities. And I'm working with the Democrat chair of the Agriculture Committee to repeal ELDs for agriculture. So
ELDs would be?
Electronic logging devices, which are, it's over-regulation by the federal government. These ELDs actually shut the truck down at their hours of service, even if you're 20 minutes away from the feedlot where you're taking the cows. I mean, what do you do with the cows, Right. So we need an exemption for agriculture.
Call AOC.
Yeah, I guess. So anyway, so the point is, I find these comments just as reprehensible as you do. I think there should be disciplinary action. It should primarily be done by the party. The Republicans self-police. My energy is going to go into finding areas where we can move Montana's agenda forward.
Well, we've heard Nancy Pelosi kind of dance around some of those comments that, well, she wasn't sure what her words meant and all, these kinds of things. But thanks for the call, Joe. I appreciate it. It is hard for some of us to understand when we hear things like, Maxine Waters particularly saying, get in their face at the grocery store, get in their face at the, the gas station or the restaurant or whatever. And Charlie Kirk, who was here not long ago, had that experience at a restaurant.
Yeah,
I think in New York.
And I've had it too. But again, this is part of the world we live in. Let's focus on getting the job done.
Amen. Shane, you got any final words for Greg? Hang on.
Please say hello to Mary for me. God bless.
All right, will do. Thanks, Shane. All right.
Good to be with you, Shane. Tom.
All right. Thanks for
everybody.
Being here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Coming up next, Steve White and Scott Sales will be in, and we'll be talking about the legislature. We're going to send Greg back to Washington to get some work done, and we'll be back right after the news at the top of the hour and all the other stuff we do. So hang on. We'll be right back. All right, thank you, Dan. Welcome back, everyone. 4 minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock. It's Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 41 degrees outside. Shane and Tom on the line in Vancouver, British Columbia. We got Scott Sales on the phone, and we've got Steve White in the house. So
good morning to you.
Hail, hail, the gang's all here.
Everybody's here. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you. Scott, happy Easter.
You bet. Glad to be here.
Well, you've had a big week.
Well, every week is big at the legislature. Some are just bigger than others.
Well, that's true.
But yeah, this I think will be done here in the next 3 days. I think we'll be done Wednesday or Thursday.
Right. Scott, I was wondering that because I looked out at what at least the House has scheduled, and they've got they don't have anything scheduled for, or is it the Senate that doesn't have anything? The Senate doesn't have any bills listed for floor action on Tuesday, and the House has only 6 bills, so things must be wrapping up.
Well, they're wrapping up. Actually, I'm going to make the schedule out today, so we will have quite a few bills up on Tuesday, probably a dozen or so. But yeah, the major issues are complete. The House Bill 2. Over in the House, I've heard they're not going to reject the amendments that the Senate put on. Medicaid expansion, we had a pretty good tussle 10 days ago or so. Looked like we might tie that thing up in an effort to try to get some natural resource bills passed, but then the pressure was too great for a couple members. They changed their votes to yes, so that passed the Senate with 2 amendments. We did get a sunset placed back on the bill, and we did get put on the bill that the department is going to have to work with DOR to verify income. So I think those were both good additions to the bill. The bill's extremely expensive with very poor work requirements, and but I've heard that the House is not going to reject those amendments either. So the last, excuse me, I picked up a cold in my last week here. The last big issue is really the governor's pre-K, which the vast majority of Republicans don't want. But I got the sneaky suspicion the same people that pushed for Medicaid expansion in the Republican Party are going to try to ram this one through too. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of days.
That comes as, to me as kind of a surprise, because usually when you see a bill revived like that, it's because some other bill is, and this isn't, I don't like it, but there are deals that are made that if this bill gets revived, then we'll do something with this other bill. And I don't know if that's going on with the pre-K thing, but that.
Oh, absolutely. What it is, I put a lot of time into 331, 278, they were two bills that would have helped Northwest Energy acquire another 150 megawatts of power production at Colstrip. So I don't know what the exact deal is. I know that those two bills are dead, but I think exactly what you're talking about, Steve. At the last second here, there could be some sort of deal on that, and shoved into one of these companion bills that have very broad titles, and that could be the end of the session there. But in my opinion, not a good trade.
Well, that Senate Bill 331, that was a very weird deal because it passed second and I've never seen a flip-flop quite like this, but it passed second reading 62 to 38, and then it came back for third reading and it failed 37 to 60. So, I mean, it was a complete reversal. So I don't know what happened there. That's must have been some things on the floor that got changed, but usually second reading and third reading are pretty close together.
Very close. Yeah, that's very unusual. Once in a while, you'll see a bill go down by a vote or two, like maybe it passes by, 50, 54, 46, and then you might see it die 50 or 49, 51 or something like that. But a wholesale switch like that means that there was a tremendous amount of lobbying or a plan from the get-go.
Well, and it serves as an example that for folks that think something's going to fly through on second reading and they see, anybody that would look at 6238 and on second reading, you're just going to kind of walk away from the Capitol and drive home thinking, well, everything's okay. But like you've always said, and you're spot on, it's not done until everybody goes home. And things are very fluid. But what I don't quite understand the mechanics of Senate Bill 658, where it died in second reading 25 to 25. How did it get revived? Was there a request for reconsideration?
Well, the Senate rules are different than the House rules.
Okay.
If a bill in the House will die on a tie vote, a bill in the Senate is still alive on a tie vote. So it just sits there on second reading. And so unless there's either a positive action in the Senate, then you can't remove the bill. That's why they do this crazy thing called indefinitely postpone. So when a bill, goes down in the Senate either on a tie vote or a negative vote, it just sits there until you do this thing called indefinitely postpone, which requires a positive vote. So the rules are different. It was just sitting there in limbo, waiting to be, acted upon again. And, of course, the Democrat minority leader repeatedly tried to, put the bill back up on the schedule that day. And the pressure, I've never seen the hospitals, the medical community, and the health and welfare type people. I've never seen the amount of lobbying that went on for those 3 days. Those guys that voted against it that were co-sponsors to the bill were under an immense amount of pressure. I don't think I've ever seen any more lobbying done on one particular bill in the history of my time here in the legislature.
Yeah, I agree with that, and a lot of folks may not realize exactly how the lobbying works, and it works the same with private citizens that understand the process. But when you see a vote that's that close, 25 to 25, or even a second reading of, just one vote apart, then what you do is you examine the roster of votes and you determine who are what we would call soft votes, and these are people that are not dug in. These are people that could go either way. And you got people on both sides analyzing it, which soft votes are there that we could maybe secure it up even better. But there's this work being done between these votes, and if they can turn a few votes, as you see there, and you see it all the time, it's not unusual, and there's nothing unfair about it. It's just the way it works. There are some people that vote for or against a bill that don't understand the bill.
Right.
And so there's lobbying goes on.
Well, you need the president of the Senate to break ties, which you need. That's a ruling you need, Scott.
Well, actually, it used to be that way until the 1972 Constitution. It used to be the lieutenant governor, just like at the federal level, was the president of the Senate and presided and broke ties, just the same as at the federal level. But that was changed in the 1972 Constitution.
And in this particular instance, we would have known which way would have gone anyway.
Well, I was going to say, yeah.
There was no doubt.
That's why I didn't mention Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah.
All the way along, I said I've opposed Medicaid expansion based on just the financial part of it. This is a hugely expensive bill, or I should say program, $1.4 billion over the biennium, has a 90-10 match from federal government. We could never afford this without the feds. At some point, they're trillions of dollars in debt, 22 to be exact, over 125 trillion in unfunded liabilities. This thing at some point is not going to work. And so we talk about kids and doing things for future generations. We are building a financial house of cards for future generations that they'll never be able to repay. And I think it's immoral, to be perfectly honest, especially when you're providing health care. We've deviated so far from what the original thought of what, the social safety net is. This Medicaid expansion is for people that are able-bodied between the ages of 19 and 64. We're not talking about people that are infirmed either mentally or physically. We're talking about able-bodied people that just 4 years ago were able to provide for themselves in some capacity.
All right. Let's take a phone call. 522-TALK is the number, 522-8255. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name? What's going on?
Hey, morning. Couple of things. There are different bargaining strategies. Let's see. When you start looking at the administrative costs of public health care versus private health care, the original health care, if I remember right, Medicaid started with 0.5% administrative costs. 0.5% administrative costs. Some of these private scam healthcare companies, and I don't even call them insurance because they're frauds as that goes, they're getting up into 35% administrative costs. That's 70 times what the administrative costs of public health care is. So when you start talking about scammers basically just living in yachts and luxury and denying people a kidney operation or a broken foot or a earache that turns into brain cancer, people are living on fat yachts and laughing. I mean, you look at the governor of Florida is the biggest Medicaid fraud guy, yet he became the governor of Florida, and actually he's a senator now. You look it up. He's the biggest welfare cheat in the world, biggest con artist of medical care, became governor and now senator of Florida. And the idea that the administrative costs to the People's County Hospital, and that's what it was. It was county hospital, and the administrative costs, well, Miss Jones, go sit down over there. The doctor will see you shortly. Instead of these scams where you got to fight through computers and layers of bureaucracy just to be able to see a doctor. So, if people want to laugh about how public health care is terrible, go next time you break your leg, go down and see if you're going to have to pay $5,000 up front just to be able to see your doctor, and you're paying crazy premiums all during the months until you break your arm, and so you're paying incredible amounts of money to be denied health care. And it's funny.
I'm not going to argue that everybody knows the healthcare system's broke both public and private.
No,
and the problem is, to a large degree, is we have taken the consumer out of the decision-making process, and the government's done that.
Well,
if you don't have a fair and free market, you're going to have this type of distorted and perverse incentives that twist the system. There's no doubt that the healthcare market's broken at both levels. Who would argue that?
Why are they doing it? Why are they?
Well, they're doing it because there's money in it. It's just like, why are we doing Medicaid expansion? It's because it's a giant giveaway to the hospitals to a large degree. Go out and look at how many billions or hundreds of millions of dollars, even in the state of Montana, have benefited the mega hospitals are really the major recipients of Medicaid expansion.
Wouldn't you say that
it's huge?
Polluters are the ones that are causing the burden? Like, in other words, if you got cancer, you got some brain cancer that's going to put you in the emergency room for 6 weeks, and there might be $2 million for brain cancer. Make the polluters who gave somebody brain cancer pay the full costs, basically, and a penalty. You know, the idea that we've got polluters that are giving us cancer, people that are putting fake food in, they're creating plastic everywhere.
Well, you're way off the subject matter.
No,
at hand
medical
now.
costs are going up because we're getting polluted to death. And
you know, life expectancy is at an all-time high. I hate to tell you.
No, it's fallen, and it's been falling.
Well, it is falling, but that's because of obesity and drug addiction and opioid addiction and all kinds of other issues.
And suicide.
Well, Puerto Rico is a pure example of Trump. But the point is that market forces and healthcare do not mix. And in fact, Hippocrates wrote about it 2,400 years ago when he said a doctor has to treat you first and deal with money later. Treat first, money later. Was in the
sounds like a pretty good socialistic idea that you have there.
Money first means extortion. You got a broken leg and somebody says, well, maybe I'll fix you. What do you think? Is that a civilized?
Well, that didn't happen until Obamacare, which was never It was never care. It was never a fair care for Americans. No. The Affordable Care Act was the Affordable Insurance Act to save the insurance companies by the Democrats.
History, man. Hippocrates wrote about it 2,400.
No, I'm saying, your federal government put together what they called the Affordable Care Act, but it was the Democrats that put together the Affordable Insurance Act to protect the insurance companies because they were in serious trouble. So when you talk about people, you started out the way. Excuse me. You started out talking about the rip-offs by people in your medical system. All right, so look to the Democratic Party first, because they're the ones who created this outlandish situation that you now have that's out of control.
Both sides of the aisle, right?
No. They took out competition. You've learned for 100 years that competition berates the cost.
Market forces, and market forces and healthcare don't mix.
Well, you're wrong about that.
Right.
We had market forces in this country for,
we agree not to agree.
200 years on that.
All right, hang on, guys, because I got to take a break. Give you plenty of time, caller. I got to take a break. We'll be right back. 24 minutes after the hour. It is Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 41 degrees outside. Shane Matavin on the line in Vancouver, British Columbia. Scott Sales on the line, and Steve White in the house. And we've got a caller ready to go, guys. So let's go to the phones. 522-TALK is the number, 522-8255. Caller, you're on the Morning Soapbox with Tom and Shane and Scott and Steve. What's up?
This is Donna in Livingston. I had to call on that last caller. He used to call the Saturday program, and he's Dave from California. I am 99% sure, so that's all the crap you were getting from him. So, and I'm sorry he wasted all your time. It should be people like us that live here that are able to talk with you, but he knows how to manipulate the time, and I just had to out him on that, so.
All right.
There you go. Thank you.
Thanks for the good job you all do. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Donna. All right. Let's see from our text line, 478-8298. Always great to hear people on socialized medicine criticizing a caller who's calling for socialized medicine. So there you are. So I guess that may ring true, I guess, if we're talking about Medicaid, Scott.
Well, you know, it's the system that we live with. I mean, what's the alternative? People have to make the best financial decisions they can with the information they have.
Yep.
But the system's definitely been distorted by, government interference. I go back to when my parents had me in 1960, Douglas, Wyoming. At that time, women spent more than outpatient surgery or one night in for a baby, $150, included the doctor and the hospital stay, and my dad paid cash for it, and I doubt he even had insurance. medical attention was affordable, but that was prior to the amount of litigation that we have, and before there was a lot of government interference. That was before Medicaid and Medicare. I need to remind people that those programs really haven't been around all that long. Historically speaking, they came in, I think, in 1963 or 60. Well, it was 64 or 5 when those programs came in with the Great Society.
Well, Scott, you should have been born a little earlier. I was born in 51, and I got the hospital bills, $91.
Wow.
91 bucks. So over a 9-year period of time, you had...
yeah, that's not something I should have exposed on the air, so...
you had $59 worth of inflation.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Hey, Scott, I see there's been some vetoes. We got 4 vetoes out there, and it was an insurance bill by Vinton, Manzella, a false reporting bill, food stamp bill by Webb, and then the employer welfare agreement with Thomas.
Well, there you go.
So there was 3 House bills and 1 Senate bill.
We're not going to increase probably anybody's accountability. I mean, most of those bills, that's what they did was make people more accountable for actions that weren't like Manzella's bill. Basically, it was if you accuse somebody of wrongdoing and you do so falsely, then you would be liable for the same sort of damages in terms of fines and prison time and the like. But we're not going to do that. Right. There's been numerous bills that have passed over the last week or two that have really been troubling to me. In fact, I'll bring it up. One of the bills I spoke on last week that we nearly killed on the floor was this concept that we're not going to give the courts the ability to take someone's license away if they refuse to pay their fines. And it's already against the law for a judge to assess a fine to someone that doesn't have the financial capability to pay it. So these are people that have been assessed to have the ability to pay but refuse to for whatever reason. And now we're not even going to let the courts do that. We're going to continue to let people, thumb their noses at the courts and refuse to pay their fines.
Wow.
And that was a bill that was promoted both by the ACLU and a group called Americans for Prosperity, which used to be a fairly conservative group, but they've combined forces on numerous fronts this session to push these type of ideas.
Well, and then I also see that, and this is where you have a good use of the committees, was Senator Ellis when she was going to want to go back and review all the subdivisions prior to the Subdivision Platting Act, which would have opened up a real Pandora's box, and that was killed by the committee. And I was glad to see that.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a break, gentlemen, and we got Fox News at the bottom of the. Well, no, we don't have Fox News. We're not going to repeat the Fox News we've been repeating for the past week. So we're going to treat you to something else. So whatever that will be, who knows? But we'll be right back. Thanks to Scott. Thanks to Steve. Thanks to Shane for being here, and we'll continue the conversation on the other side of the news. 25 minutes for the top of the hour. It is Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 42 degrees outside. Good morning, everyone. Shane Matobin on the line with me from Vancouver, British Columbia. Tom Eagleoff, your morning mayor, in the house. And we've got Scott Sales on line number 1. We got Steve White in the house in person. And we've got a caller waiting on line 2. So, caller, you are on the air. Okay, you're not on the air then. Just forget it.
There was something on the air.
Yeah, there's something on there, but that must have been Shane goofing off.
No, that was a guy from California. He does it all the time.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That was the guy. All right. Okay. Well, let's see. We're finishing up here. You think this will be done by Thursday, Scott? Is that right?
Yeah, Wednesday or Thursday. There's this little rule that says that one body can't adjourn without the other one's permission more than 3 days.
Okay.
So typically it's pretty hard to get out of here until day 87 because of that rule. That if the other body feels like they have something that they want to continue on with and you can't get the votes to adjourn, then you can call the other person back. So let's say that the House was to adjourn tomorrow, and the Senate didn't approve of that, then 3 days later, on Friday, we could call them back for the last couple of days of the session. So they'd have to, drag all those people back, and there's, nobody wants that to happen. So oftentimes that's why the session ends at around day 87.
Right. So tomorrow will be day 85 then.
I believe so.
Yep.
See, so Tuesday will be day 85, 86, 87. Yep. That's my estimate.
So
we're going to come in tonight just for a little bit. We're going to come in tonight at 5, and then both the House and Senate will be in tomorrow at 1.
So there are some bills being heard in House committee meetings this week, or at least on Tuesday. There's going to be 6 bills. So I would assume those bills are going to have to get over to the Senate. So if they come out of that committee, they'll probably make a decision on Tuesday, I guess. And then, but how does that work? Because they're going to have to come back to the floor of the House for consideration, and then.
Well, if they're amended.
Oh, I see.
They're not going to have a chance if they're amended, and they're all pretty much study resolutions at this point. I assigned a few Senate study resolutions, I think on Friday or on Thursday when we adjourned. But let's be honest, if you haven't gotten your bill in until the last week of the session, you get what you get.
Well, there's one that's sitting in committee that's going to be heard tomorrow. One of them is House Bill 661, which is the increase to the aviation fuel tax, and they originally wanted to go from 4 cents to 14, and now it's from 4 to 5 cents. So it's going to be heard in committee. So if they approve that, I guess it comes back to the floor, and they could do second and third reading on one day, I guess.
The rules get in terms of third reading are pretty much suspended for the last 3 days of the session. In addition to that, it may not get amended. I mean, the Senate put some substantial amendments on that bill, and it's going to come out of there. There's little doubt. I think it'll probably come out unamended. So it's probably just being incorporated into the House Bill 2 in some fashion.
So if they don't mess with it, it wouldn't have to go back to the Senate then?
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Let's take a phone.
Unless they reject the Senate amendments, we don't have to touch it.
Right.
Okay. Let's take a phone call. 522-TALK is the number. Caller, thanks for waiting. You're on the air with Scott Sales and Steve White and Shane and me. What's up?
Hey, it's Andy. I just got a question for Senator Sales. I hear him say that government's involved in our healthcare system. I'm curious to know what is that involvement, because we all know who's making the profits, and it's not the government. So I'd like to have an answer.
Okay. All right.
Repeat the question for me again. I missed the very first part of it. Something to do with profits.
How is the government involved in healthcare?
It's very simple. If they're involved in particularly 2 programs, but really actually more than that. There's a whole pile of them. Medicaid, Medicare, there's Indian Health Services. There's all kinds of federal programs that deal with private healthcare systems where they subsidize the system. So basically, there's a large percentage, if not the majority of people nowadays, close to, are covered under some sort of single-payer healthcare system that's provided by the government. That distorts the free market when you have billions and billions of dollars being injected into a system. And we've had that's the problem. I mean, we know for a fact if you look at all the rising cost of this is a different subject, but it's similar in sense. If you look at the rising cost of higher education, it's really come about since the government really got involved with Pell Grants and student loans, because you are supplying an ever larger amount of money chasing a finite resource, and that causes the price to go up.
Yeah, right. But ultimately, these subsidies are benefiting private healthcare companies. So how could it be?
Oh, absolutely, they are.
Well, how could it be socialized medicine if ultimately it's
a quasi-perverted system of private and public health care.
Who's ultimately profiting? If it was the government, that'd be one thing, but it's not. It's private health insurance companies. They're not in it.
Well, it's just not private health insurance companies. The hospitals are benefiting from this giant Medicaid expansion. We, a group of us, about 5 or 6, published a list. I don't know if it made it into the Bozeman Chronicle or not. We paid for it out of our pocket to show the people of Montana. It was published throughout the major papers in Montana. It showed a list of the hospitals around the state of Montana and how much they had benefited over the last 2 years from Medicaid expansion. And if my memory serves me right, Benefits in Great Falls received, I want to say, close to $200 million.
Yep, Montana's
that's
one
a
of the
ton of
highest
money.
Montana's one of the highest recipients of federal dollars in the country, even though...
Oh, absolutely. We're a giant welfare state. You're spot on.
Well, actually, 13 out of the 15 top welfare recipients are all voted Trump in 2016. Just
you're absolutely right, and it's a very odd. If you look at Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Montana, we have our hand out more than the states of New York, California,
Illinois.
Illinois, probably New
Florida,
Jersey,
Texas.
No,
those
pretty well.
typically vote Republican.
But back to my original question though, who's ultimately profiting off the healthcare industry? Because it's not the government. It's
I've told you,
these guys aren't.
It's insurance companies and it's the big health providers, the hospitals. Absolutely, they're the major beneficiary of this government money being put into the system.
There you go.
So it's actually kind of pseudo-socialism. Is that what you're saying?
It's a combination of a private. At one point, it was a private enterprise, private market that has been, over the course of the last actually close to 60 years, has been, I'll say, perverted to a certain degree by an influx of government dollars. Absolutely.
It's
crony capitalism, if that's what you want to call it. That's what I would view it as.
It is.
Okay.
It's corporate welfare is what it's called.
All right.
That's exactly right.
And it happens all over the country and all
over the country. And in fact, I find it that this crony capitalism worse than actually making direct payments to people that are in need, the social safety net.
Well, in my opinion, it's not working because people are getting ripped off left and right. Capitalism isn't working for a lot of people.
Well, the reason why it isn't working is because we don't have true what I would call free market capitalism. Capitalism is just the means of production if you go out and look at it. China is a capitalistic country. Russia is a capitalistic country. Capital is the means of production. What used to make the United States a different type of capitalism, we were free market capitalism, where people competed in the market of ideas and capital was based upon the merit of those ideas. We don't have that any longer because we have a government that has interjected itself into the free market.
Right.
Well, I have to disagree with you on that because, it's actually the healthcare conglomerate that has formed their own monopoly so they can price fix the system. I wouldn't say the government's been involved. Well, the government's actually allowed it.
Oh, the government's been involved in a huge way. They have allowed it to happen.
I got to go, guys. I got to take a break.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for the time.
All right. Hey,
you bet.
No problem. All right, we'll be back right after this. All right, 11 minutes before the top of the hour. We're not gonna be here too long because we got to take another break at 50. But we let the call go a little longer than we should have. But spirited discussion, Scott. So and Steve and
question for Scott. Yeah. Scott, for bills that
it's time to let Steve talk a little bit.
No. I've
dominated the conversation.
I love being a listener, and you do great. I'm curious with the suspension of rules and things that they can do to keep bills alive. If a bill doesn't make the transmittal deadline the 45th day and it dies because of it didn't make that date and that transfer over to the other side, and it's declared dead at this point, can rules be suspended to revive it and bring it back?
Absolutely.
Well, that's what I was afraid of.
That's why I say, until we sine die, your treasure and your liberty are still at risk. I mean, there isn't a piece of legislation that can't be revived.
Well, everyone's cheering when badbills.com shows sine die on the homepage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, somebody asked. Yeah, someone asked about the daylight savings time, pro and con, and I think both of those bills died.
Yeah, we had House Bill 430, which was Galloway, and that one was a daylight savings time bill that died. House Bill 153 from Representative Esp, and that was a daylight savings time bill. And so keep your clocks the way they are. Everything's safe.
we're safe for another 2 years.
And you can use straws at the same time.
Hey, you guys are all about my age. When we were kids.
I'm older than you, Scott.
And I'm older than both of you.
Well, I know you're a little older, yeah. But
Thank you.
I thought I remember when we didn't have daylight savings, if I remember correctly, when I was young.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks in Montana, mainly the farmers and the ranchers and such, they never changed their clocks anyway.
Yeah.
My dad did that. He drove me crazy. He wouldn't change his clock because he wanted to run on the regular Mountain Standard Time, and somebody'd ask him what time it was, and he'd have to figure it out. So
you had to know who you were talking to.
Yeah, that's right. But a lot of guys, that were in the ag world, and that was just my experience. I mean, I could be wrong, but they weren't protesting anything. It just was easier for scheduling everything that they're doing to stay with that time. And in those days, and maybe 5 years before right now, things weren't changing automatically. Your wristwatch didn't change automatically. The computers didn't change automatically. And if you had sprinkler systems and all of that, you had to go around and change everything.
Yeah.
And so it was just much easier just to leave it be.
Yeah. Well,
farmers didn't take vacations anyway, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, Shane's on metric time. You got to take the time now and add 32 minutes to it.
It's like our dollar. You get 30% more time.
That's right.
And then pilots are on Zulu time, so people can Google that up and see what that means.
All right, let's take that other break. We'll be right back with more. All right, 4 minutes before the top of the hour. It is Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 43 degrees outside. Shane Talman on the line in Vancouver, British Columbia, who has just lost the signal. So we'll get him back in a minute. And Scott Sales, of course, on the line with us. Steve White, badbills.com, is in the house. And well, gentlemen, we need to finalize everything here. We got about 4 minutes to go. So,
well, I'd like to thank Scott for being on the show with us and with everybody in the Gallen Valley, and I also like to thank you, Scott, for I had a bill that you were sort of aware of. There's a lot going through the session. This was a House bill. It was House Bill 190, and it was sponsored by Representative Grubbs, and it was actually a bill I worked on as a county commissioner in my last year in office. And I ran it through and got the approval of the Montana Association of Counties, which includes all the county commissioners from across the state. And it was a pretty straightforward bill. It streamlined the process of setting speed limits in school zones, and it took away a lot of the red tape that it took, and probably sliced about 4 or 5 months out of the process. And it made it, I think, a really good way to do speed limits. My fellow commissioners, Seifert and Skinner, they were in full support of it. I made it over to Helena to testify in favor of it on my own dime, and I believed strongly in it, and it got approved, and I appreciate you helping it in the Senate side. And
you bet.
It did extremely well in the House, and got signed by the governor last week, and so it'll take effect the 1st of October, and I think 56 counties will benefit from that, and that was pretty much the last thing I had to wrap up as a commissioner 5 months after I left office. So I was real gratified that made it. There was a bill similar to it in Missoula, and it was tabled. So this bill did well. So, but I want to thank you for being on the show with me. It's been an extremely great time, and I've been honored to be here. And hopefully you'll be here next week for, I think Tom and I talked about wrapping this up for the session.
Absolutely. I'll be in the office next week.
Okay, good.
So, right.
That'll be outstanding, and then we can just go through everything that took place, and that'll be the last hurrah.
All right.
You bet. I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Thanks for being here with me. We appreciate it. Thanks, Shane.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mayor. Talk to you tomorrow morning. Be happy, be safe.
All right. Thanks, guys. Let's take a quick phone call before we all get out of here. Caller, you're on the air. What's up?
What's up? I was going to ask a question. With all the healthcare costs that we have, the burden of that, why have we allowed a product to be put on the market which is saturated kids, this vaping product? And it has toxins in them and nicotine, and it's causing health conditions that are preventable by not having the product on the market.
Well, ask the FCC, I guess, or FDA.
No, it's Congress. It's us. Our grandchildren are being affected by this.
Yeah, I hear you.
27.7%.
All right, I got to go. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for getting that info to us. And thanks, Steve, for being here. Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see everybody bright and early, 6 a.m. tomorrow morning.